Hello, everybody. It's Coach Gary Hall, Sr. at the Race Club in a beautiful afternoon in Coronado, California. And we are broadcasting live, as we will be every other day throughout the Olympic Games for all 9 days of the swimming competition. I want to thank Coach Thomas Henson, who's here at my side, our producer for this show, and all the content that you're going to see. Throughout the Olympics, we're going to analyze certain races, we're going to make certain predictions, but we're going to mainly look at swimming technique. Before we dive into today's two events, which are really two very interesting events, from my perspective, the men's 100-meter breaststroke and the women's 400-meter freestyle. We're going to look at the women's 400-meter freestyle first, and we're going to dive into the men's 100-meter breaststroke. I first want to thank all of our members who've joined up for the Race Club on YouTube. You can go to our YouTube channel and just hit join, and you will become an elite member of the Race Club YouTube subscriber. And as elite members, first of all, you're going to also have the access to a lot of our content that we're going to send out to you every month, content that you won't find for free on YouTube. This is in addition to the many YouTube videos that you found and our free content that's available on our website. You will have exclusive rights to see a lot of content that will not be given out to anyone else. So join our Race Club membership today. Click join and become an elite member. As an elite member, you also get highest priority for any questions you have during our show. If you send in a question, we will know if you're an elite member, and we will put your questions ahead of the others. So now let's go into the women's 400 freestyle. And I think that realistically, this race is going to boil down between two women, Ariarne Titmus from Australia and Peaty Ledecky from the United States. Peaty has been the dominant force in the 400, the 200, 800, and the 1500. But prior to, in the last World Championships in 2019, when allegedly Peaty was not feeling well. She was sick, and I'm not trying to give her excuses, nor would she ever take any excuses. But Ariarne really came back and blistered her at the end of the race. And that's atypical of Peaty. Peaty has been known historically as a great finisher. So that was kind of the first wake-up call for Peaty in the 400. Now, Ariarne went to the Olympic trials recently and swam a 3:56.9, just a half a second off of Peaty's world record. And we're going to show that race here in just a minute. But there's a difference in the technique that Ariarne uses. She has a very unusual breathing pattern. I'm going to talk about that in a second, and how we don't see that very often, and it's really a great tribute to how well Ariarne is trained, and really her VO2 max, or her fitness level to be able to do what she does in both the 200 and the 400. Extremely unusual breathing pattern, but it works for her. And so that's why we always say at the Race Club, there is never one technique, there is never one breathing pattern necessarily that anyone or everyone should use. It depends on so many different factors. But here you see Ariarne. She's and this is when she's swimming the 400 at the Olympic trials in Australia recently. And she has around a 90 stroke rate. She's very steady throughout the race. Here, this is past the 200. She's out in 1:57, almost the same time that Peaty went out at the Olympic trials in Omaha. Now, Ariarne uses what we call a 2-4 breathing pattern. So she breathes 2 cycles in a row to the left, and then she holds for 4. And that's a very common breathing pattern that we see in the women's 100-meter freestyle. Simone Manuel, Penny Olesiak, even Sarah Sjostrom will use that type of a breathing pattern in the 100 freestyle. But Ariarne uses this in the 400, which is pretty amazing testament to her aerobic capacity. So she stays very steady, and if you know, it's a little hard to tell here because the video jumps around a little bit. But when she breathes, her stroke rate slows down, and then it speeds up during the 4 strokes. And that gives her a nice advantage of getting that speed during those 4 strokes down. But then the 2 breaths, she's still holding around a 90 stroke rate. And she comes into the 300 wall ahead of world record pace. But then she loses it She loses that world record in the last 100. Now, that's Katie's world record. So what that's telling us is that in Rio, Katie came back in the last 100 faster than Ariane. Here you see Ariane falling off just a little bit, and Katie, if you can imagine her in Rio, pulling ahead and winning by a half a second. But this is today. That's not 5 years ago. The question is, can Katie still do that? Can she come back? And there's a lot of questions of whether or not she is the same Katie Ledecky she was. She's not the same. She's gotten bigger. She's stronger. Her technique has changed. Now you see Katie at the Olympic trials. Her first 50, she's out in over 100 stroke rate, still using a hybrid. But in the last 4 to 8 years, she's actually gone to a more pulling-dominated stroke and a less kicking-dominated stroke. So here in her 400, she goes out very fast. She's out over 100 stroke rate in the first 50, uncharacteristic of her. But again, she's increased her stroke rate to compensate for a softer kick. And her kick is on again, off again. It's not steady like Ariane. Ariane, steady 6-beat kick all the way through the 400. But here you see Katie using her hybrid. Also, she comes down in her stroke rate. By the end of the 100, she's now down to about a 92 stroke rate. And what's interesting here is she will go out in the 200 almost at the same time as Ariane did in her Australian trials, but the whole difference in the race is in the last 200. And it's a huge difference where Katie finishes in 4:01. I mean, she's finished this race under 4 minutes more times than I can count. I don't even know how many times she's broken 4 minutes. She went 3:59 2 months before the trials. So why is she going 4:01 here? Well, a lot of people speculate that she just didn't rest. And I believe that. She was one of the few athletes at the trials who didn't really have to back off the pedal for very long and knew she could still make the team. So is that a factor weighing in? I think it is. And we're going to find out how much very soon when she swims against Ariane. It really is going to boil down to that last 200. Who has the fitness, who has the strength, who has the speed to come back at the end? Now, in Korea 2 years ago, you saw Ariane pull away from Katie at the very end. I can't count that as a fair race. If Katie was sick, I don't think that we can look at that and say, well, that's what's going to happen. We don't know how Katie's going to feel here. The only thing I can tell you is she's going to have more rest, and she's going to be, I think, stronger in coming back in Tokyo than she was in Omaha.
This is that last 50 of the
Yeah, this is the end of the World Championships, and you see just Katie uncharacteristically just not being able to finish the way she does, and you see Ariane going to almost to 100 stroke rate here to finish. Again, holding that steady 4-2 pattern, and at the end she actually goes to a 4-1 pattern like you would basically or like Kate Campbell would swim in 100 freestyle. Both of them have extremely high elbows. Here you have, this is Katie, and she's recovering a little bit more vertically on her breath side, which is very characteristic, but incredibly high elbow pull. This is a very low drag. She has an ability to get into that high elbow pull like almost no other swimmer I've ever seen. Really keeping drag minimal, very high elbow on the recovery, medium octane. And this is Ariane here, where she's a little lower octane on the left when she breathes off to the left side than she is on the right. On her breathing side, a little bit lower octane. Again, you see extremely high elbows. None of these distance swimmers are going to be pulling deep. They just can't and swim fast. So both of them do a good job, and maybe Ariane a little bit better than Katie of bearing the head after the breath. You see the bow wave coming over the top of Ariane's head. That's a really important feature. Sometimes I wish that Katie would just get her head just a little bit tucked down a little bit more after the breath. But see that kick in Ariane, how steady that is and how strong it is. So Katie, 359.9 in 2019, Ariane 358. They're going to be under those times. Ariane's already gone 356.9. World record probably is going to go, and I think that it'll go in the finals, not in the prelims. So the question is, really to me is, can Katie finish the last 200 like she did in Rio? If she does, we're going to have a really heck of a race here, and it'll go down to the last 50. If not, I think that this is, really Ariane's race to lose. And if she swims well, like she did in the trials, and maybe comes back just a little bit faster, I think she's going to win. So now let's switch gears. Let's go over to the men's 100 breaststroke. And here, there's probably never been a more dominant figure in any race in history besides Adam Peaty in the men's 100-meter breaststroke. Now, how can I say that? Well, it's pretty easy when he has the top 16 fastest 100-meter breaststrokes of all time. He has 18 out of the top 20 fastest breaststrokes in the 100-meter of all time. And he has a world record that is over 1 second ahead of second fastest swimmer in history. And how does he do this? Well, his hallmark feature, and I love to teach Adam Peaty breaststroke, very similar to Lily King breaststroke technique. I call it the power breaststroke because he's high stroke rate, uses tremendous amount of coupling. On the overhead camera, you see how wide he is with the pull, and you see how narrow he is with the kick. But his kick cycle time and his pull cycle time are faster than any other swimmers out there. And what he does is he goes down in a stroke rate of about 60 strokes per minute, 1 stroke per second on the first 50, and he comes back even faster than that. He actually goes up to 61, 62 on the second 50. Nobody else has been able to do that. Nobody else has been able to hold and sustain a 60-plus stroke rate all the way down. Here he turns the wall at 26.6 in his world record swim. That's about 0.3 of a second faster than Michael Andrew made the turn at the Olympic trials when he went 58.1. But what a difference in the second 50. And you just see Adam pull away from the rest of the field in a second 50. And again, in the semifinals, he goes 56.8. In the finals, I think he went 50.
So this is
57.1.
the semifinal. The race we were watching before is the final.
So this is the actual world record where he went. And right next to him is the only guy that, can say that he might even have a shot at staying with Adam Peaty, and that's Arno Kuminga from the Netherlands. And Arno's kind of a new kid on the block in the sense that he's not young, he's been around, but he just keeps getting better. And he's thrown down a 206 plus in the 200 and a 57.9 in this particular race, which I think was in the Netherlands. There's only 2 swimmers in this heat. But Arno is like Adam recreated except for one difference. He has a very Adam Peaty-like power breaststroke, throwing the head down hard, elevating high, slamming the body down, really augmenting his kicking propulsion. The difference is this. Arno starts out at a 60 stroke rate, and he ends the first 50 at about a 55 or 56. He comes off the wall, he starts out at 55 or 6, goes down to 51 or 52, and then he climbs back up to 55 or 56 at the end. If Arno could hold a 60 stroke rate or plus 60 like Adam does, he could probably go 57 low as well, maybe 56 high. He's an amazing breaststroke. I have to say one other thing about Arno. This is really important before we move on to, this is Michael Andrew at the Olympic trials. But Arno does not do a swimming warm-up before he races. In the last couple of years, he's learned by just doing dry land and yoga ahead of the time, he actually swims faster. I think that's fascinating. Maybe we overvalue the warm-ups in swimming. Here's Michael Andrew at the Olympic trials, 40 stroke rate. Kind of what, I hate to use this term, but I'm going to say it anyway, old school breaststroke. He's slow stroke rate. He reminds me of Kitajima, Kevin Cordes. They have tremendous propulsion, tremendous glide, and you see Michael come out of his breakout way ahead. The guy's got a great start for the breaststrokers, very powerful on his underwaters, and his kick is just beyond belief. He goes so far on his stroke. He turns the wall 26.9 or 26.8 high, something like that, at a 40 stroke rate. Adam's 26.6, 26.7 at a 60 plus or 61 stroke rate going down. And again, 40 stroke rate coming back. The only time you see Michael slow down, and this was the semifinal, this was his fastest swim. I think he might have gone a little faster in the prelims. He went 58.1 here. He went 58.7 or 8, I think, in the finals. But you see him go up to about a 46 stroke rate. Not very fast to finish, but he doesn't die here. He doesn't fatigue as much as he did in the finals. In the last 2 or 3 strokes in the finals. If he had 1 or 2 more strokes to go, I don't think he makes the team. I think he gets third instead of first. So it's going to be interesting to see. I don't consider Michael Andrew any threat to Peaty, but I do think he has a good chance for a medal. I'd love to see Michael go under 58, but I just don't think he can go much faster than that with a 40 stroke rate. So very interesting matchup here. You've got Adam at 56.8, outstroke rates his fastest kick cycle, fastest pull cycle, strong on both sides. You've got Arno Kuminga really basically using the same technique, just not as fast as stroke rate. And you got Michael Andrew doing this 40 stroke rate, Kitajima kind of, or Kevin Cordes kind of breaststroke, which enables him only because of his propulsion, strong upper body and propulsion to go 58.1. But I don't see him going much faster than that. I hope he does. He's a great kid, and I'd love to see him medal. But I think this is Adam Peaty's race to lose.
Speaking of Adam, we have some video of his breaststroke kick.
Yeah, let's show you just some highlights from. Here's Adam from above. Notice I call it the loop pull. He's right in the middle. He's pulling ahead of everybody. Look how wide he is with the pull, and look how narrow he is with the kick. And his kick is so fast, you can't almost see it happen on the above camera. It's like whoosh, and it's over. Even slowed down, you see amazingly fast. Now, what is it that enables him to go that fast with his legs is great tools. He has incredible flexibility in the hip and great pronation in the ankle. He doesn't have to draw his knees up past 120 degrees. When you measure from his upper body to his thighs, that's a 120-degree angle. Most of the other athletes have to go to 100, 110, but that takes them longer to get that far up and get back. He also doesn't have to go wide with his knees, so he gets this tremendous surface area without having to widen the knees, again, leading to a kick cycle time of under 0.5 seconds. His pull cycle time, 0.5, his kick cycle time, 0.48. That's how he gets to a 60-plus stroke rate. There just aren't that many athletes that have the ability to do that. We measure kick cycle times here on every swimmer. Usually they're 0.6, 0.65, 0.56. Mike, who's the breaststroker from Northwestern that we did the videos? Mike Alexandrov, 3-time Olympian, 0.56 cycle time. 50-point 100 breaststroker. Just doesn't have the ability to get his legs through like Adam. He has to draw his knees forward to 100 degrees in order to get the surface area he needs. And here's one of the reasons why we are big on using this band is to try to get them comfortable with narrow knees, getting the knees in so they can get through the kick cycle time faster. And the band that we use, the elastic band from Finese, is a good way to teach this drill. The problem here is the swimmers and age groupers just letting his feet hang. Notice how they're just hanging at the end of it. You'll never see an elite breaststroker do that. They'll lift those feet up, point them at the end, and really, these are all in our videos. You can see these great videos that my son Richard did on the race club. And a lot of these will be released to our elite members on our YouTube channel. These are from some of the videos we took in some of our camps that we did earlier last year. Again, a lot of use of this rubber band. We try to teach first the importance of streamlining. You just can't do Lily King or Adam Peaty breaststroke when you're young. You just can't do it because you don't have the leg strength to get through it that quickly. So you have to build up to that. Even Adam was the fastest 50 guy in the world for years. When he was 19, he was going 26 in the 50 breaststroke, but his 100 came along much later because of his fitness, his strength. It took years to develop the ability to hold that stroke rate for an entire 100. And a great credit goes to his coach, Mel Marshall, who has done an amazing job at developing the greatest breaststroker of all time on the men's side. But I like this drill. We use the band a lot, teaching narrow legs, getting in, fast kick cycle. And the important thing is, first, when they're young, to teach the streamlining, the front end and the back end. Don't let them, make a lot of mistakes in the streamline. That means racing streamline the front end, keeping the chin down to the chest. Now, no matter how fast these guys go, they're all getting their chin down to their chest on the way down. They're not looking forward. and their hands aren't relaxed out front. They're pushing those arms and hyperextending their shoulders forward as far as they can possibly go. So, you know, at the backhand, the most common problem we see is dropping the legs, letting the feet hang, and not lifting up and pointing those toes back. And sometimes we see that happen too late. So they let the feet hang, they let the legs hang, and then they draw the feet up. You have to actually do that as you're finishing the kick so that the legs come up and the toes point at the end. And that's tricky because you're going from pronation to plantar flexion of the ankle, which means you're changing the direction of your foot as you finish the breaststroke kick. The other thing you have to be very careful, and we saw this even with some of the elite breaststrokers who, you know, thanks for them, there's no video of underwater cameras because they would come up and you'd see them come back down with their feet, which merits a disqualification. So you can't come up, bend the knees, and then let the feet drop down with a small dolphin kick. That does give you propulsion, by the way. Unfortunately, it's not allowed. It's illegal. So you have to come up, straighten the legs, point the toes, and hold that position. Adam Peaty does this perhaps better than anybody I've ever seen as he comes up, really holds that leg straight back, pointed toe position, and really gets the most out of a very fast stroke rate, but with a lot of distance per stroke. He is not sacrificing on the account of drag. The other thing I'll mention about Adam, you look at him, he's just hugely strong, massively strong. If Adam were swimming any other stroke other than breaststroke, his bulk size, his chest size, his biceps would kill him. But you can get away with that in breaststroke because it is a stop and go stroke. And when he goes forward and he leans his body out and he stretches those shoulders forward, the biceps don't get in the way and his chest doesn't get in the way it would in a freestyle butterfly race. So when you look at the size and the morphology or the shape of the swimmer, it's kind of much more forgiving in breaststroke than it is in freestyle or backstroke or fly. And that's why you see, and Peaty loves to push that iron. I mean, he bench presses a lot of weight. I don't know how much, but he's massively strong. His legs, his quads look like a guy in the World Cup, in the finals of the World Cup. He's a soccer player kind of, quads. It's just really strong quads. Strong in all parts of his body. But not only that, he's fit. And to be able to come back, to maintain that stroke rate, and remember, there's no rest point in breaststroke. You don't get to take any vacation time. You're either pushing out the front, or you're pulling wide, or you're releasing, coming back, but you really don't get to rest. The legs, you're either drawing them up, pressing them back, lifting, pointing the toes. There's no rest in any of that either. That's one of the reasons why breaststroke may be the hardest stroke, certainly the hardest to teach and hardest to learn. Totally different set of tools. It's going to be a great race. I hope Adam breaks his own world record. I don't see anyone beating. I think Kuminga takes second. I'm hoping Michael Andrew will sneak in there for third. Let's take some questions. We've got a lot of questions that are coming through. So Marco Samaricha, I'm sorry if I messed up the name. I apologize. He asks, is a wider pull or narrow pull better for breaststroke? And I think, again, Adam's kind of recreated, and so does Lily to a degree, the wider pull, what we call now the loop pull. And I think Cameron Vandenberg really did this also back in 2012. But you see, and you see them really go wider than you think that most coaches would recommend. And there's a couple reasons why I think they do. Number one, they're elevating way out of the water. They're bringing their upper body way up high. Now at the race club, we measure the angular velocity of their speed coming up and coming back down. But you can see how high they get. They're flexing, they're bending at the lumbar spine, at the lower back position. They're pivoting on that axis. And they're coming up. As they come up and they elevate that upper body, they're rounding the corner on a wide pull and getting a lot of propulsion out of that turn. If they turn too soon, they don't get as much propulsion out of that. They also want to come up higher to buy more time, so they have more time for their legs to get back into the propulsion mode so that they come down harder. Remember, the higher they climb, the harder they fall, and they have more time to get that kick propulsion into maximum stage. They want to crash into the water at the same time their feet are in maximum propulsion. That is a really hard thing to do. And you have to have extremely fast kick cycle time to be able to do that. So the wider pull is better for a couple of reasons. It doesn't cause more drag, even though a lot of coaches think that, because the upper arm is actually not moving forward when you go wide. It's as you're raising the body up and you're pulling wide, your upper arm is not moving forward. That means there's no drag from your upper arm. And then you get more power out of it, and then you come down fast. But the kick has to be narrow. So remember breaststroke, wide front, narrow back. And that's what you see on those elite breaststrokers. All right, let's take another question. We've got, looks like a camper coming out here in Coronado in a couple of weeks, Cyrus Chan. Look forward to seeing you. His daughter's been told to keep her knees narrow, but we noticed that it cuts almost half her distance per stroke. And Cyrus, there's a good reason for that. She doesn't have good enough tools to keep her knees narrow and get the surface area on her instep to be able to push water back. When we put that yellow band on almost every swimmer we test, they get slower. When I did it with Rebecca Soni, her time was the same, with or without the band. It's just amazing tools, flexibility. So what that means is we need the narrow knees for kick cycle time, speed. But if you don't have any power, it doesn't matter. You're not going to go fast either way. I call that the tomahawk chop. You're just chopping water backward. You're not pushing water backward. So what we have to work on is getting that hip internal rotation and getting the pronation of the ankle. We get those two things, and then we can go narrow. If you try to make them go narrow too soon before they have the tools, they can't go fast. So you're kind of stuck. Anyway, so we'll talk about that in the camp, but we have to work on, and I'll show you how to help your breaststrokers get better tools. Here's one question about Peaty and the relay. You know that UK relay, I'm telling you, it's going to be tough to beat those guys, especially if Peaty, if he splits 56 low, or who knows, he could go 55 high. I think UK wins that relay because I see, Michael Andrew going under 58, but you're giving away 2 seconds, and I don't think we have 2 seconds to give away. Now, maybe Caleb is fast enough in that fly leg to make up that difference, but I don't think he will be. That's just too much time to give up. So I would be excited. I would love to see Peaty split a 55.9 on the breaststroke leg in that relay. I wouldn't be surprised if he does.
And just above that, we have Magna FX wondering if you think Britain or America will win the medley relay.
Well, I kind of gave away my thoughts there, but I'm pulling for USA. I have to. I'm red, white, and blue all the way. It's going to be an interesting race. And the other thing that I think is that Duncan Scott is an amazing anchor leg on the UK freestyle relay. We've got probably Zach Apple anchoring for us, and Zach is no slouch. But man, I don't know if they lead off early or at the same time. I think UK could probably pull that out. I wouldn't be surprised if they have a little edge on Zach leading on. When you give Duncan Scott a lead, he's not going to relinquish it at the end in that freestyle leg. So I'd love to see the USA. And the USA is known for pulling rabbits out of the hat. And let's hope they do that. I'd love to see that happen. It's going to be a great race. And there's some other countries that have some, excellent teams in there too. But I think it's going to boil down for those two teams in the medley relay. Sean Lee asks, what do you think about pull, kick, glide instead of pull, kick, glide in breaststroke? Pull, glide, kick. Pull, glide, kick. The pull, kick, glide is basically the way you have to start to teach breaststroke. You can't just, bypass all the steps that are taken to get to where Adam and Lily is. You have to work and pay your dues to get there. So if you start out trying to teach a young swimmer to do Adam Peaty breaststroke, they're going to go slower because they're going to stop themselves because they don't have the leg speed, and they end up kicking into a bad drag position. So the pull, kick, glide is really to teach them to streamline first. Work on their kick, work on their propulsion, and male or female. In the males, it's probably 60 to 80% leg propulsion contributing to the velocity of the swimmer, the overall velocity. And the females, it's probably 70 to 80%. So it's a kick-dominated stroke. And that's what you have to work out. So you really do have to focus on streamlining, working on the timing, getting them in, getting that distance per stroke. Worry about the speed later. It's going to come. You just have to work on getting the right tools, then the strength, then the fitness. And you need all three of those to kick breaststroke well. I think we're almost out of time. Let's see if there's any other questions here. We'll talk about, here's a question about the 200 breaststroke for women, and we're going to get to that later. We'll come back. Mark Clayton, one of our race climbers, asked, Mark, we're going to come back to the 200 fly. We're going to do an in-depth analysis of the 200 breaststroke at a later time for women, as we'll try to cover almost every event that we have during the trials or during the Olympics. And don't forget tonight, I think it's at 7:30 Eastern time, they're having the opening ceremony on NBC. So catch it if you can. Get into the Olympic spirit. We're going to sign off for now. Look forward. Remember, every 2 days we're going to be on live. So catch our broadcast every 2 days on the YouTube live channel. We'll be on again Sunday. We don't even know yet what events we're going to talk about, because starting today we're going to have events that have already happened. So we may talk a little bit about the events that have already been swum and a few of the events that are coming up. Anyway, look forward to joining us. Don't forget, become an elite member. Join our Race Club YouTube elite membership. Click on join, go to YouTube, and it's only $4.99 a month, but you're gonna get a bargain. It's a great amount of content. You're gonna have these live shows. You can join those for free, but you're gonna have more content. You'll have elite access to ask questions when you come up. We'll know if you're an elite member of the Race Club, and I hope you'll all join us. So thanks for being part of the show. We'll look forward to our next broadcast. Don't forget, on Sunday, same time, 5 p.m. Eastern time, we'll be on for approximately half an hour. So we'll see you then. Thank you.